a covenant. Covenant is the most solemn and binding form of commitment. The relationship of the believer to God is based on a covenant, is basic. Proverbs chapter 2, verse 17, 16. The theme is that if you listen to this teaching, it will deliver you from the immoral woman, from the seductress who flatters with her words, who forsakes the companion of her youth and forgets the covenant of her God. So that the woman who's unfaithful to her husband is forgetting, breaking the covenant that she made before God with that man. So even in the Old Testament, marriage is a covenant. They say we're praying all the time, we're always in the temple, and God, you don't answer our prayers. And God says, I'll tell you one or two reasons why I don't answer your prayers. And here's one of them. Malachi 2:13. This is the second thing you do. You cover the altar of the Lord with tears, with weeping and crying. But I'm not going to answer your prayers. Now, why does he say that? Yet you say, for what reason? Because the Lord has been witness between you and the wife of your youth, with whom you have dealt treacherously. Yet she is to men who profess religion. Doesn't matter how much you pray, how often you come to church. If you are not faithful to your covenant commitment to your wife, I won't listen to your prayers. I will not pay any attention to you. And he declares that such men are covenant. So you see, both for the woman and for the man, unfaithfulness to the marriage commitment is the breaking of a covenant. That's why adultery is so much more serious a sin than fornication. Fornication, not known in the Bible as premarital sex, it's sin, but it's not the breaking of a covenant. But adultery is immorality which involves the breaking of a covenant. And that's why adultery is far more serious than fornication. Now, covenant is one of God's secrets. In Psalm 25 and verse 14, the Lord talks about his covenant and the kind of covenant in the biblical sense, except by revelation. Only God can make us understand from the scriptures what covenant is. But in Psalm 25, verse 14, he will show them his covenant. So God's covenant is his secret, but he reveals it to whom? To those who fear him. It's the God-fearing that can apprehend and enter into covenant. And then in Ephesians 5:32, Paul, talking about marriage and making it parallel to the relationship between Christ and the church, says this. This, that's marriage, is a great mystery. Now, a mystery in the language of the New Testament was not something that could never be known, because in those days they had what they called mystery religions. Religions which offered certain secrets to people who were initiated into them. But if you were not initiated, you couldn't know the secrets. So marriage is a secret that you can only know when you're initiated into it. And God initiates those who are God-fearing. I'd like to say to those of you who are not married, if there are any here, you can read all the books and listen to all the tapes, but there's something you'll never know about marriage till you get married. It really is a mystery. It's a good mystery.
Involve you, whether you're single, married. How does it involve you? You notice that I have a space there for you to check that he didn't say anything about. and you probably have not checked it, but it's the one that has to do with adultery, and it starts off with that sentence starts off with the word note, N-O-T-E. Why did I put it there? 69%, based upon statistics, 69% of men who attend church have been or are involved in pornography. Covenant breakers, yes. But what has happened to the marriages of those where a spouse, now it's not just men, it's also women involved in pornography. So your comments about that and about anything that we've covered here. Come up and share. Nobody has anything? Derek? Derek? You really hit some hard areas. Because nobody wants to say anything about it. Anybody? Pat? Here comes Pat.
It's not taught in the church that it's a covenant with God. If it's taught, it just goes without even recognizing. That's what you said. Because otherwise there wouldn't be as many divorces as there are. No, God said it's a covenant with me. So, if there's abuse, you don't stay in it. But God can redeem that. We watched a movie last night on a guy that was beating his wife, But we have to understand it's not just a covenant with God. It's a covenant with. I made a covenant with Jim, and I made a covenant with God. So when we had issues, in which we did.
Well, let me tell you about her.
You have two strong individuals. And I tell you what, I wasn't strong when I married him, but he made me strong. Because he actually pulled out my giftings, But when we had issues, first thing that came to mind was divorce, And so I had to think this thing through. Am I willing to divorce Jim? Am I willing to suffer the consequences of my children doing these things? We had to decide to work it out. Okay? That means I had to give and he had to give. Both of us had to get before God. And that's the reason we've been together 62 years. Because we chose to get with God and make it work. And of course, we've learned since then so much about our own wills and that we don't have a choice but to do it.
Now, I know what Pat has said. We use the word divorce. That's part of my vocabulary in this marriage relationship. And if you have, or if you know of those who are thinking about their marital situation, the first thing you have to flush the word divorce out of your life. Totally. It is not an alternative. But I would say this, and this is getting off for spouse, and they come to me, and if I can see that it's going to become to me, and if I can see that it's going to be physical more than anything else, I'm going to tell that person who comes to me, you leave your spouse. I'm not talking about divorce, but leave your spouse. I'm not talking about divorce, but you leave your spouse and allow that spouse to get his or her act together so that the two of you can live together.